Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Wolverine live show here on the Wolverine.com YouTube channel. If you're watching live or in the podcast feed after the fact, Anthony Broom and Clayton Safey here from Regents Field in downtown Ann Arbor. Chris Ballas with us as well, joining from parts unknown. A lot to get to today, basketball heavy show. We'll talk about Dusty May's contract. We will also just, wrap up some thoughts on the MSU game. A lot of people won't hear this podcast until tomorrow, so maybe not a full-fledged preview of Nebraska, but more so the stretch run at large. A couple football things to get to quickly, and we'll do questions every week, as we tend to do. We are out here live at Regents Field until, we'll be here at tip-off of the game. Come on out. Have a couple beers on us. We've got some signed stuff to give away. We'd love to see you out here. They're also doing some drink and food specials as well. Clayton, welcome.
It's great to be here.
Chris, welcome as too.
That's a beautiful living room he's got behind him. The piano is a nice touch. How much is that piano?
It was expensive. I don't want to talk about my riches. Okay, thank you.
But it's awesome here. This is the best bar on Main Street by far, and best bar in Ann Arbor by far. And Brian Bush, voice of Michigan basketball, bought the first several beers here. So thank you to him. He's calling the game out in Nebraska, but he's a fan favorite here.
Chris, welcome from your Airbnb in Malibu, it looks like.
Yeah. So wait a minute. Bush sent you guys money for beer?
No, he called the establishment here at Regents Field, and
wow.
And there's still a few more to be bought for Michigan fans, Fort members here.
Boy, if I'd known that, I definitely would have been there. So,
wouldn't have booked that trip out to Maui.
Exactly. So, and played piano for the last several hours. But I'll tell you what, Brian Bush has done a great job, man, for Michigan basketball. Matt Shepard was outstanding as the voice of Michigan basketball. Brian Bush is right up there, too. Has done a fantastic job. Not only that, he's a great guy. So hopefully he calls a win tonight, fellas, because this is a huge game. This is pivotal. I know the Michigan State game was big. You can't let them beat you twice, as Dusty May said. They got to come out and play well tonight.
They do. We'll just get quick thoughts out of the way, since this will be the segment that doesn't date itself as much. Win tonight, feel pretty good about it. Lose tonight, gets a little sketchy down the stretch here. Yeah,
it gets a lot sketchy because then you're a game behind Michigan State. They've got their big two games left are Maryland and on the road, which I think Maryland will win. If Michigan State wins that game, I think they win the Big Ten. They got Wisconsin at home, and then they finish with Michigan. That's going to be a tough one for Michigan to go up there and win on senior night. But stranger things have happened. But Michigan's going to play a lot better than they did against Michigan State. So hopefully they bring their A game tonight. Hopefully we're talking about maybe a first-place Michigan team when we convene on Thursday night when the Michigan plays Rutgers at 9 p.m. Thanks, Big Ten schedulers, on Thursday night.
It only really gets sketchy for the Big Ten, like in terms of controlling your own destiny for an outright Big Ten title. But you're still in an outstanding spot right now in the standings. You're in an outstanding spot for NCAA tournament. You want to win every game, obviously, but you still got a bunch of opportunities down the stretch to kind of bolster your seeding. So this is a huge one, as they all are. But and I think Michigan's going to get a win tonight. But it's not easy out there. They've historically fared really well there. I think they've only lost twice. One of them being last season. That was one of the most embarrassing games I've ever seen. And then the other one was 2018. It doesn't count because we don't want it to count. So it doesn't count. But in 2018, they went out there and got shelled, and then came back and beat Nebraska under Tim Miles in the Big Ten tournament. And then, of course, that Michigan team made it all the way to the national title game. So, but those are the two losses out there. Other than that, they've won. I think they've only lost 3 times all time against Nebraska. So they've fared well, but it's a challenge. Those people come out, credit them. Their fan base is extremely loyal. Not a whole lot to do out there. And it's not a knock on them. They love their Nebraska ball, as they call it. And that's why they sell out volleyball games and all sorts of stuff. So it's going to be a pretty raucous environment, I think.
Yeah, where else are you going to go, right?
Exactly.
At Nebraska on a Monday night. So with all due respect to the people in Nebraska and our producer, Megan. So
there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
These games are the only thing I care about. Even though we have more options around here. I
Yep,
still care more about this than anything else. So.
absolutely. And there will be a Dr. Boswell will be there from the Wolverine.com sitting behind the
Yep.
bench. So watch for him on TV. And there will be a few Michigan fans there in attendance. Fun place to watch a game. I will say this: it gets loud. Having been there, it gets really loud when they're playing well. It can get really quiet too when the other team is playing well. So it'll be fascinating to see what the crowd is like, given they're coming off a terrible loss to Penn State. So if they can start strong and keep it up, keep the crowd out of it, they're going to have a really good shot to win this game. Now favored, as Mr. Dave says over here, by 1.5 after opening as a 1.5 point underdog.
We'll take it. Of course, that is an 8 o'clock tip. If you are someone listening in the future, hopefully our predictions are correct. I think we're all kind of on the same page with the win there. If not, well, hopefully it doesn't affect the segment we do later on too much. But
this is going to date itself in about an hour and a half.
That's right.
Yeah, of course it will. But so we'll talk about we'll talk about Big Ten title race. We'll talk about Dusty May's contract. Get to a couple other odds and ends things. Take some questions and get you all out of here. So give you time to come down here and hang out with us at Regents Field. Of course, we are brought to you, as we are every week, by our friends over at HomefieldApparel.com. Use that promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order. Of course, I've got I modeled it today. Usually I'm down the middle, Mr. Professional, but knowing that we were going to be out amongst the masses, I got the sweater, the sweatshirt here. I've got the trucker hat on. Clayton has a sweet bomber jacket. Said he thought about
that
wearing.
I almost wore. It's like I didn't even wear a jacket over here. It's beautiful out. It feels like spring.
Yeah, it's 50 degrees all of a sudden, so that's good. Some of the sunshine followed me from my vacation last week down in Florida, but yeah, you go through there and some of my favorite items. I love that undefeated hoodie. I almost wore that here tonight. The national championship shirt that's kind of Houston space themed is one of my favorites as well. There's something for everyone, whether it's a football fan, Michigan basketball fan, there's hockey in there, there's a baseball shirt in there. There's stuff in there that I've probably never seen before because they're always adding stuff to the mix. So use that promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order today. We also brought to you tonight by ourselves at thewolverine.com. Use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access to our site for $1. It's the best deal in America. It's still active. It's dated itself extremely well. A lot of great stuff at thewolverine.com. Not only from us, but our recruiting guys. We're at an event over the weekend. A lot of good intel there. You also can intel from our national team as well. So use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access for $1. Well, we will start today with the Dusty May contract. It is some of the financials of it came out. It's a $1 million per year annual raise. It's basically a new contract, a 5-year deal. According to Ward Manual, that buyout got a little bit bigger too. Goes up to $7.5 million this year, and I believe trickles down each additional year after that. But Michigan, I think it's worth starting off by saying that this was something that Michigan spearheaded. This was not, as far as we know, not from May's side of the table, from his representation from May, but some things that kind of help you lock him in a little more with Indiana looming. He keeps winning at this clip. It would be more than just Indiana that might be interested. So I think Michigan takes a big step here to not only secure its future, but pay a guy who's already won at a big clip market value and then some.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me if his agent made a call to Ward Manual and said, hey, my guy is really in demand and Indiana has an opening and they're interested. What are you going to do to keep him? He wouldn't be doing his job if he didn't do that. So, and I do know that Ward floated some numbers and they asked them, hey, what, give me 2 or 3 numbers or, details that maybe you're interested in. And Dusty May and his representation came back. But I do also know that Dusty May wasn't going to spend a ton of time on this, that this was going to be, okay, let's get this done so that I can concentrate on my team because this is where he wanted to be. And, he told us last Monday when we talked to him, that I love it here. I love being the coach at Michigan, and as much respect as he has for Indiana, he's just getting started here. His family's here. So we had a pretty good idea last Monday that this is how it was going to end. Didn't know it would happen so soon. We thought maybe it would happen right after the regular season. And some people have said, this kind of puts a little pressure on him, right? You sign that big contract. Now, what happens if you go 0-5 down the stretch, which I don't anticipate. But man, there was a lot of pressure on Friday night, and Michigan didn't live up to it, and really wilted, which was disappointing. That could have been an epic night in Ann Arbor. Michigan State spoiled the party as they've done with their basketball program, but not over by a long stretch. And Dusty May has this thing headed in the right direction. This team won 8 games last year, fellas. So, as disappointing as it was to lose a rivalry game on a big stage, Michigan is still in control of its destiny with 5 games to go in the Big Ten. If you'd have told us that at the beginning of the year, we would have signed up for that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and the interesting thing that Ward Manuel did reveal is that they had these conversations before the Indiana job came open. They started to talk about this, and then it did. And then Michigan just so happens to go down to Bloomington like one day after the job opened, and that led to all these questions from Indiana reporters, even some Michigan reporters that were there about that job, which probably gave him even more leverage in what Ward Manuel called negotiations. Of course, as you would expect, between these two sides, he's now, I think the data hasn't come out for this year yet, but if you look at it from a year ago, now that he's over $4.5 million a year, and that'll go up annually, all the details aren't out there, but that will rank in top 10, top 15-ish in college basketball. And I think that's exactly what Dusty May deserves. This is an elite coach who's already made a Final Four. He was the hottest commodity on the market last year. He's done a great job turning Michigan around already. And the future looks really bright, right? And you have to refit, retool every year. You have to use the transfer portal, but you have just a ton of confidence that he's going to be able to do that at a high level each and every year, adapt to his players, fit his system to what he has, like he did this year. This year they were experimenting in the summer with the Danny Wolf ball screen with Vlad Golden. Didn't work all that well. They circled back to it more in the fall, started to click a little bit better in some of those workouts, and then they end up going with it, and it's the staple of their offense. It's their identity right now. That tells you everything you need to know about just how this guy will kind of figure out what works best for this set of players. So you're probably going to lose a lot of talent this year, but I mean, these next 5 years under contract, they'll probably get an extension in another 2 or 3 anyway. You kind of have to for recruiting at this point, where you need to be signed for several years out. They look really bright, and Michigan's got a guy who's in his not even 50 years old yet that could be here theoretically for a very, very long time. And I think that's exactly what Ward Manuel wants.
And the thing of it too is, yeah, they're going to lose some talent from this team. We'll see how much of it winds up being, but they didn't have any talent heading into the summer.
They didn't have a team.
They didn't have a basketball team. So the fact that they were able to kind of pull it together and do all that, just got really quiet in here. That was weird.
Just keep talking.
It's a captive audience, I guess. The fact that they were able to identify what they could piece together to be competitive this year. They said that Dusty said in his first press conference, like, there are no rebuilding years for us. Like, we expect to compete right away. And to his credit and his staff's credit, they built something that could compete right away, and not just compete. I think when we sat there and heard that was like, okay, you're going to compete for, you'll be on the bubble. We'll see if you can get into the NCAA tournament. They're in the fight for a Big Ten regular season title in year one, and kind of setting a foundation for what can come next. I think that, obviously we'll talk about next year when it's time to talk about next year, but you've got a good recruiting class coming in. You really have some positive momentum here. And, again, I heard it was actually a local radio host over the weekend saying that them extending him so soon was a sign that it was maybe or a sign that college sports is not about loyalty anymore. And I feel the opposite. I think that Michigan steps up and makes this kind of a commitment to this guy because it is going so well, so fast. And you don't even let that become a conversation. Like, just get it done, put the money in his pocket, and you're good to go moving forward.
This is loyalty.
Yeah. What idiot said that? I'm just kidding.
On,
you don't have to tell us.
I don't do that. We've all got bad opinions.
I know.
I do it regularly here.
That's a terrible opinion, though. This just goes to show you that Dusty May signed a contract here, and then rather than bailing after 1 year or going back to his alma mater and the place that where he really got his roots and his foundation, as he said, this guy wants to be here and made a commitment here, and he's going to honor it. Michigan is showing loyalty to him by honoring him with a long-term contract, even though they're not even through, what are they, 3/4 of the way through his first season. So So I think that reeks of loyalty, frankly. So I think that's fantastic. And I think, you know what, speaking to everybody who's talked to him, who's worked for him, has said the same thing about him. This is a guy who is fully committed when he is here and to the task at hand, as he has shown. And that's why you could tell it bothered him when he was getting questions about Indiana, right? Like, that's crazy. This is where I want to be. I love it at Michigan. And he's such a great fit here. And as one of my buddies who used to work with him said, I hope he understands what a great fit he is here. And he absolutely does. So here we are with Dusty May at 12-3 in the Big Ten, fellas. If you had asked us before the season, would you take that going into the last 5, even with a loss to Michigan State? Absolutely, you would. But still have opportunities to beat State again. It's kind of like the USA and the Russians, or the the Canadians, right? The Russians or the U.S. team gets up there and wins it in the Canadian. Yeah.
Are you comparing them to? Let's talk about the comparisons between Canada and Russia. Let's get into that.
I'm sorry. Let's not. I keep thinking Russia and the United States is the big rivalry. Now it's Canada, and the USA goes up there and wins. Now it is up to Michigan.
What are your thoughts on what's happening in the Ukraine? Do you have any?
Yeah, let's go. You want to talk? We got.
No,
I'm ready.
Let's not do that. Let's not do that. I hate to do this. Play this old bit too, but one of the first things, I think I texted you this, Clayton, right after the deal was announced. And for the record, it's not signed yet to our knowledge. Like they've agreed to terms. There is lawyers working. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but I thought it was kind of interesting that they put out a release over agreed to terms. I feel like that's a first for Michigan, or at least.
Yeah. Well, it was going to get out, right? So you might as well announce it. Get it out of the way.
It was a little weird for it to be like a 5 o'clock news dump the day of hours before your biggest game of the season. And what happened? We'll talk about what happened Friday night. It's not related at all. But one of the first things I texted you was, well, gee, this was a way to be proactive and get after it. And you almost wonder what would have been if they had done that with their old football coach. But I'm not. That's just me being a cynic, but
we're gonna need another hour if we're gonna dig into that.
Another hour and a lot more beers. But you know what? Credit to everyone involved. I think it was good to get this done. Be proactive for a change. We always talked about how Michigan athletics has been reactive instead of proactive over the years. I like that they stepped up, got it done, and the people that signed the checks kind of stepped up and got it done. So credit where credit's due. Tip of the Homefield cap.
That's right.
Yeah, without a doubt. And hey, it's Ward's guy, right? Everybody's saying, hey, he takes care of his guys that he's hired, and that certainly is the case here. So, but why not, right? Dusty May, again, everything I've already said about him, he's a great fit here. He's earned this, and I don't have any question. Everybody's talking about already looking at next year. Well, what happens when you lose Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden, if Danny Wolf indeed does declare for the NBA draft, which I expect him to do? Well, he's going to go out and get a couple more guys from the portal that fit. That's what's going to happen. He's a great recruiter. Kids like to play in this system, and I have no question that he knows how to put together a roster a lot better than the previous guy they had here.
No doubt. It's impressive. Going back to something you said a few minutes ago, Anthony, is the opening press conference, what the expectations were, and that was before he built the roster, so those changed as time went on. But one of the comparisons was Mike Rhodes at Penn State. It was like he lost his entire roster. He comes from VCU because Micah Shrewsbury goes to Notre Dame. He brings a couple guys with him, which a lot of people expected Dusty May to do. He ends up bringing just one, Vladislav Golden. And, okay, they were around 500 last year. They didn't make the tournament. I don't even think they made the NIT, but it's like it was a foundation type of year. Now, of course, they're no good, although they did just kill Nebraska the other night. But those were the type of expectations. It's going to be a long rebuild. It's going to take a little bit of time. But this is the kind of microwave era of college athletics, and Dusty May might be as good as anybody at dealing with that, come to find out, which is why we're sitting here now. Probably wouldn't be having this show if they were 500. They're in the mix for a Big Ten championship, and it's amazing. It's been so fun to watch.
Yeah, and people seem to forget, too, is a pretty good recruiting class coming in already. So, we talk about this being the easy bake era of college sports where you can kind of microwave a team pretty quickly, but got a pretty good foundation of guys, too. I like this freshman group that they have already. I think at least one or two of them should take a big jump for next year. You'll have Trey McKinney coming in. you'll have, I assume, a few holdovers, and then rest of it's in the portal, and we'll cook and we'll see what it looks like next year. But
You get 15 spots now too.
yeah, you do. So any other thoughts on the Dusty contract?
Happy. Time to win.
That's right. Well, before we talk about it being time to win, I want to go back and talk about Friday night's game. That was struggling to find the right adjective to describe it, but incredibly frustrating. It was a disappointment.
Yeah, you want to win every game. So, yeah, any loss is disappointing. Not discouraging, but disappointing. You hadn't lost in, 3-4 weeks. So.
Yeah, and it was tough because you felt like when you come out of the game feeling like Michigan State did a few things better than they normally do, namely shooting from the perimeter. Michigan didn't play as well. I've said, I feel like the entire year, the best version of this team features an aggressive Trey Donaldson. He was as passive as he'd been in weeks in that game. Michigan State, I thought, especially on the boards, played a little harder. They're a little deeper, and you had an off night, and that's a recipe for what the final score ultimately was. But that game was much closer than the final score would indicate too. It's, for some reason, it just felt like after having 5 days off or 4 days off, and not they practiced and the game planned, but 4 days between games, they just seemed a step slow and a little gassed.
Yeah, in the second half they did. I mean, Michigan State got off to a great start. Michigan came back. They were up by 8 points at one point. You had the terrible call on the offensive rebound. Should have been a goaltend, and then the unbelievable technical foul. Paul Zelz, or whatever the hell his name is, however you want to pronounce it, Zelk. The same guy that threw John Beilein out of a game, 7 years ago now, or 8 years ago, is the first guy to give Dusty May a technical at Michigan, the second in his 7 years as a head coach. Come on, Paul, get your shit together. All right. Ted Hillary was up there in the stands watching a former official of Michigan games and Big Ten games, and hopefully he gets a talking to and says, don't be the guy. Don't be that guy, right? There are other coaches in this conference that deserve technicals a lot more than a guy 40 feet across from you waving it, trying to get your attention about an offensive goaltend. That was a 3-point swing. That was critical. There were some missed free throws that were critical. More than anything, though, there's one stretch in the second half when Holloman hits 3 threes for Michigan State in a row. That really provided the separation and proved to be the difference in the game. 90% of the time, that guy, a good portion of the time, that guy's not hitting those shots. So then they have a bank three that goes in. Just wasn't their night. So does that mean it's the end of the season? Absolutely not. It was a disappointing, absolutely, especially in a night when you really could have grabbed control of the Big Ten race, and now it's going to be a fight to the finish, and you got to take care of business.
Yeah, it's just one loss, and I mean it's all timing of you come in first place, but the schedules are unbalanced, so. All that matters is how you end, the season, where you end the season, and of course, it's gonna help motivate you and things like that, knowing what you need to do down the stretch. But they were probably due to lose a game that was close coming down the wire. It was 4-point game and then 6-point game, and the banked in 3 by Jeremy Fears Jr. Was kind of one of the daggers that made it a 9-point game, 71-62, and Michigan didn't score in the last 4 minutes, but. I just thought that when you talk about Trey Holloman taking over for, hitting those 3 shots in a row, Fears hit 2 threes, Xavier Booker hit what I think was his 8th 3 of the season. He's an okay shooter for a big guy, but hardly plays anymore. You play the percentages on how you guard some of this, and, they got beat by that. Michigan didn't hit their shots, 5 or 21 from 3, so you lost the 3-point battle, and you left too much meat on the bone in all these different areas because you kind of knew they were gonna at least do solid on the offensive glass. They get 14 offensive rebounds, 43.8% of their missed shots they grab. Some of them were avoidable. Some of them it's just their style of play and how they're gonna play. And then they kind of got you into a pretty stagnant offense there in the second half once things slowed down. It played in an extremely slow pace. And coming into the game, we said this, right? When Chris and I were on the pod last Thursday and Anthony was luckily in Florida, that we don't know how these two teams are going to match up till we see it. It turns out Michigan played much better when it was more of a wide open type of game. They forced some turnovers. They got out and ran a little bit. And it was actually Michigan State that thrived a little bit more in the half quarter, a lot more in the half quarter, especially due to some of those threes they made in the second half, 6 of them in the second half. So, I thought you played okay. Michigan State got a lot of things to go their way, and credit to them for doing that, because I'm not going to blame anyone for hitting an open shot, even if they're shooting a certain percentage for the year. Kudos to those guys for stepping up. Jace Richardson was unbelievable. Michigan had to do a lot better, especially the guard play. I mean, Trey Donaldson has 11 points and 2 assists combined over the last 2 games. They're playing through Danny Wolf a lot. They're relying a lot on him, and it feels like Trey Donaldson has kind of taken somewhat of a back seat, which cannot happen down the stretch if you want to win meaningful games in February and March and April.
Now there was one stretch. There was one stretch, guys, where he passes up a 9-footer, throws it to Burnett in the corner, who is guarded, gets it back at the 3-point line, and then airballs it. He was playing with no confidence. He wanted no part of the moment, guys, and you can't have that from your point guard. Somebody's got to step up in games like this. Trey Donaldson's got to be better. I'm sure he knows it.
Yeah, and that would be one of the bigger, outside of just the vacuum of that game, one of my bigger concerns is that, one, you do have kind of this roller coaster of, on some nights Trey Donaldson's aggressive and looks like the best player on the floor, like Danny Wolf, Vlad Golden included. Other nights, you hardly notice he's out there, or you do notice he's out there because he's kind of shrinking in the moment. And when you have a night where that occurs and you're just not, it doesn't matter who's starting, who's on the bench, you're just not getting anything from the 3 position right now. Roddy Gale, Reuben Jones, at least offensively, they play hard. They do make a lot of those invisible plays that Dusty May likes to talk about. But when you have Trey Donaldson playing like that, and you're not getting much offense from guys that aren't Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden, and you're down Sam Walters, and there needs to be a spark that comes somewhere. And so much of that went wrong in that game that, the fact that they still kind of hung in there and were maybe a missed shot or 2 away from things looking a lot different, like, you just kind of tip your hat and you move on to the next game, which is this game that they'll play tonight. But I want to move into the stretch run in general. To win this league, you're going to have to find a way to do a game better than Michigan State. Now, tonight you'll play at Nebraska, and then you've got 3 straight home games. You got Rutgers on Thursday, the dreaded 9 p.m. tip. Sunday against Illinois, you'll play Maryland, and then you will end the season in East Lansing at Michigan State. How do we feel about how they end the season at this point? I think 4-1 still very much in play. I took some flack for saying I think that they'll find a way to go up to Breslin and win a basketball game that last week of the year. But it just feels like when you look at the aggregate, it feels like 4-1 is probably the magic number here.
To win a share, probably. I think 3-2 is more likely. And I just, it's going to be tough to win at Nebraska. Michigan State are both tough games. And then Illinois, it's crazy, right? How poorly they've played, but they're capable of beating you. And, if you don't play a good game, if you play poorly, you're going to lose that game. Maryland is the one that I really have my eye on. I think Maryland's a bad matchup for Michigan. I think Maryland's a bad matchup for a lot of teams. They're playing as well as anybody in the Big Ten right now, along with Wisconsin, which blew a 14-point lead. Looked like they took their foot off the gas, and I thought Maryland and Wisconsin were playing better than anybody in the Big Ten. Now you have to say Michigan State and Maryland. So that game's going to be huge on Wednesday. So to me, it starts tonight, right? You get the Nebraska game, then you damn well better win the next 2. Then you're right there, fellas, at the end of the season. If Michigan State drops one of those 2, at the very least, you're going to have a chance to share a Big Ten title. And so if they had beaten Michigan State, this team's winning a title. I don't have any question about it in my mind. Right now, I think it's probably 75-25 against, and they're going to need some help. They do still control their own destiny, guys, and that's a good thing. But it starts tonight, and even Rutgers, right, at 9 o'clock, the way they're playing with their 2 studs, they can give you fits if you don't come to play. That crowd's not going to be great at 9 o'clock on a Thursday night, unfortunately, in Ann Arbor. So you can't hopefully it's not a dead building, but you can't let that affect you as well. So to me, I'm looking at 3-2, hopefully, and that would be an unbelievable first season for Dusty May.
The interesting thing about the next 3 teams is you don't know how these teams are going to play against you. Nebraska, Rutgers, Illinois. I mean, Rutgers has tremendous upside with their high-level talent. They don't shoot very well. They're a terrible defensive team. And Nebraska, they were playing incredibly well. They were 2-7 in the league. They get themselves back on the right side of the bubble, which they sit right now. But that only lasts so long if you continue to lose games. They were down 20 in the second half at Northwestern last week, come all the way back and win, and then they don't show up They stayed on the road, didn't go back home, didn't show up at all. Might as well have gone back home for the game at Penn State, and Penn State hadn't won in like a month. It was, if they would have lost the game, it would have been exactly a month since they had won a game. So you don't know what you're going to get from them. Of course, we'll find out here soon. Rutgers, Illinois just got killed in 2 games last week, combined margin of like 60 points. Wisconsin and Duke, and then you have Maryland, who you do kind of know what you're going to get from them, at least their starting lineup. Michigan State, you know what you're going to get from them. That's a winnable game in East Lansing, as winnable as it was for Michigan State to come in here and win. So, you kind of – those are the 2, I think, that are going to make or break this season, unless you go out and lose – and not make or break the season, make or break the Big Ten championship hunt. But tonight's a big one to make sure that those games mean a whole hell of a lot.
Get a quick update, too, from our friends over at FanDuel. Michigan State – the odds-on favorite now to win the Big Ten at -130, and Michigan's at +185. Maryland's at +550, and Wisconsin, still odds on Wisconsin here, at +1400. So it feels like it's a 2-horse race with the third horse kind of in the rearview mirror, right there with a chance to kind of swoop in and make something happen here. But I guess we'll just kind of call our shot now. Like, is this regular season title going to come down to that last game in East Lansing?
I'd love to say yes. I think Michigan State will have a 1-game lead. Michigan's going to have to get it to that win to get a share of the title. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I'd say it does. I'd say the same thing. And Michigan State's they have less games left, but they got to keep winning too. So
you have KenPom pulled up. What does Michigan State have the rest of the way?
The rest of the way, Michigan State's got Maryland, Wisconsin, Iowa, and then Michigan. Maryland game on the road on Wednesday night. That's going to be a huge one. I don't know if
where's that Wisconsin game at?
The Wisconsin game is at the Jack Breslin Student Event Center in East Lansing, Michigan. East Lansing, Michigan.
Sorry,
they also play at Iowa. So if I were to get hot, not like
they can.
They
won't get a stop, but
no, might be 170 to 100. It might be like the Pistons Hawks game last night, 148 to 143 or something like that. But if they get hot, you never know.
It's true.
Random, just old man shakes fist at the sky take on the state of the National Basketball Association. I think I saw a stat where, shout out to the Pistons, by the way, winners of 6 in a row. I think I saw they've, in all but one of those games, I could completely be talking out of my rear end here, but they've scored 70 points in the first half in like the majority of those games. I remember when that team was winning games and winning titles by barely scoring 70 points. So
72-69, I think, was one game against the Pacers. And I miss defense. And I like, you know what? That's the thing about the NBA, right? You watch for 3 quarters, these guys, it looks like an old NBA All-Star game going up and down the floor. Here I am shaking my fist at Cloud now too, Anthony. But Anthony's an old soul, so he gets it. But then all of a sudden you turn it on in the fourth quarter and these guys are balling their asses off, man, and playing hard. So, but hey, it was entertaining anyway, and it's a fun team to watch, the Pistons.
Yeah, the score when Tayshaun had his block against the Pacers was what?
I just watched that game the other day. I think it was 74 or 72-67 was the final score.
It's crazy.
So yeah. But the NBA now it's where every game is like the NBA All-Star Game, and the NBA All-Star Game is now a comedy show. Apparently,
it is ridiculous.
That's all I have to say on college hoops today. I do want to bring up, and pardon my delay here. I want to move to football really quick because we just talked about FanDuel here. FanDuel released the Big Ten win totals projected for this upcoming season. They have Michigan at 8. I'm not going to go through all of them. There's 18 teams now. We don't have time for that. But Michigan sits at 8.5. Ohio State at 10.5. Oregon at 10.5. Penn State at 10.5. Any other notable ones here? USC is at 7.5. Iowa, the 7.5. Michigan State 5.5. Any of those stand out to either of you guys?
Michigan State seems high. I'm just kidding. 5.5 sounds about right. So, Michigan at 8.5. I would have gone probably 9.5 if we're being honest. But there's a lot to prove, right? That offense was anemic last year, even though you've got a couple better quarterbacks in the mix. How's the offensive line going to be? How are the receivers going to be? So I think the defense is going to be fantastic. But it's going to be 3 or 4 games, right, that make or break the schedule. So at Oklahoma, at Nebraska, Ohio State at home. What's the other one, fellas? I don't think they're going to have any trouble playing at East Lansing again this year. I think that Michigan State's going to have a hard time
Yeah, I
scoring.
think my biggest question with the 8.5 is, I look at that schedule and I see 9 to 10 ish, maybe more. But is it the 6 road games? Is that where maybe you lose a game off that? Because that's more than they've played in a while.
Yeah, that's fair too. So,
Yeah.
but they aren't really tough road games. Nebraska's going to be better. What is it? I think their total is 7.5. So they'll be better, and they're tough to beat at home. That's a great atmosphere. So they'll get better quarterback play this year in year 2. So these are great environments. Oklahoma's the one that I look at that as a logical loss just because of where it falls in the schedule, and that's an environment loss type of thing. But there's not a game on that schedule that they can't win. And of course, Ohio State. There's that. They've got that in their heads, baby. We're looking at 5 in a row. I think Michigan wins that game again this year.
The interesting thing to me, other than Michigan, which there's a whole bunch we could get into there, but 8.5. Ohio State at 10.5. They open with Texas, right? And they also have the Michigan game on the road. Not sure their full schedule. They have Penn State this year. Do they have Oregon? But that's high, and they're going to lose a lot. They tend to restock. Certainly, a team that recruits at that high level, a football factory above all else, and win at all costs type of program, win at all, $25 million cost program per year, by the way. So, but they're going to be a really good team, and it's exciting to think about what could be on the line on November 29th here in Ann Arbor, just down the block, Anthony, from Regions Field, where we're broadcasting right now.
It's a 20-minute walk. Ask me how I know.
I know, yeah,
because
we're here. Post game show.
We've been here. We were here every week after Michigan home games, and we had 5 in a row to start the year. So
we did.
I got my cardio. I actually put on a few pounds just not making that walk since the end of football season. But,
5 in a row, and we'll only have 6 total.
Yeah, there's not a back-to-back home game all year.
It's so weird, and there'll be a Zach Bryan concert out there, which is weird.
You guys going? Did you get your tickets?
I do not have my tickets. It is sold out though, right? That's insane.
Yeah, it's sold out pretty quick.
Yeah, there's a big event coming in a year or two as well. We can't give it away, but to the big house that a certain fan segment will really, really appreciate. We can't tell you what it is, but they're hoping to break an attendance record during a bye week in probably 2027 as well.
What kind of people are their fans?
Maybe.
Like, describe one of their fans.
I will not. I cannot do that. That would give it away. So it won't be a bye week. It'll actually be in the summer, I guess.
Will it take place during Hash Bash?
I have no comment. So no further comment here.
Summer. That sounds like a slam type of event. So
yeah. All right. Well, any other thoughts on Big Ten over unders? We might just get into questions from here.
Let's take the questions.
Northwestern 3.5. Yikes! Got to win at Wrigley.
Yeah.
Yeah. I pause when I see the ones that are under 4, only because, especially with a team like Northwestern, that
it's hard not to win 4 games, right?
Yeah,
Anthony.
Yeah, I don't know what their schedule looks like, but it's with so much. I won't even say parity in the league. I think there's pretty clear top 4 or 5 teams, but the bottom of this league, when it's bad, is really bad. And if you catch a team at the right time, you could trick your way into 5-6 wins.
Yeah.
Northwestern built a program out of that.
Can I ask you guys something?
Yeah.
Why would a program like Northwestern or Purdue or maybe Illinois is a little bit better right now at the current moment, but historically in Indiana, same thing with them. Why did they want to add these teams? They're just going to fall into even more irrelevancy. I get you get this payout, but they were already getting a pretty good deal because they get the equal payout, and their votes probably weren't going to block adding all these other teams, but they may win 3 or 4 games. But they're making a little more money. That's no fun to me. This sucks. I hate the expansion.
Yeah, Megan, maybe you can call up the Northwestern. I'm gonna put some money on Northwestern right now.
You want me to read it? I just pulled it up.
Yeah, please do.
Tulane in New Orleans.
Okay.
Western Illinois, who I think lost by like 80 to Indiana last year. Oregon.
Yep. Okay.
In Evanston. UCLA in Evanston. Louisiana Monroe at home. Penn State at Penn State. Versus Purdue, at Nebraska, at USC, versus Michigan at Wrigley Field, versus Minnesota at Wrigley Field, and at Illinois. That is a pretty challenging schedule. And when you're a bad team too, like people would say this, well, Michigan State has such a tough schedule. They got to play Michigan, Ohio State every year. And if you're Michigan, you got to play Ohio State and Michigan State every year. Well, when Michigan State sucks, you don't get the break. You're the bad team. You got to play all good teams. So this is a tough schedule for them.
Yeah, it is. They'd have to get those 4 games probably in the first 6 if they're going to do it. So, but you never know. I'm going to trust in Northwestern. I'm going to drop $100 on the on the Wildcats to cover that, and hope it pays off.
Hopefully a monkey paw didn't shrink somewhere and something terrible happens at Wrigley Field. But
who are you going to be rooting for November 15th?
That's what I'm
We're going
wondering.
to find out.
Day of deer season.
We're going to find out. Yeah. So, hey, it's all about
They may
the money,
need 2
baby.
more wins at that point. You're going to be.
It's all about the Benjamins. That's right.
That's right.
How wild is that? They're going to play a football game at a baseball stadium this year. I'm just
Can't wait.
There's TVs on around us, and I just saw a commercial for Saturday. I think it's Saturday. Michigan's going to play, or the Red Wings are going to play a hockey game at the Horseshoe against the Columbus Blue Jackets, which I thought about going, but I can't wear red into that stadium. It just feels like blasphemy.
You don't have to wear red. Yeah.
We're
Well, you wear blue, you're rooting for the Blue Jackets.
We're white.
We're white or black.
Oh, that's true.
Neutral.
Well, I'm not going, but
Yeah, it doesn't matter anyway.
all right, let's get into questions, and we'll wrap up here after that. We got a lot of good ones. Our first one we'll take from the message board. It's from our pal Viva Las Vegas, who says, if you had to place an over-under on the number of pass completions over 20 yards this upcoming regular season, would you be over or under 22? And he says, in parentheses, that's 2 per game.
Over.
Pull it up.
I think with Chip Lindsey here, I think they're going to be more explosive plays. I think that's more than reasonable, right? And just with better quarterback play itself, I think you're going to see that. So I would go with the over.
22. Let's see what Michigan had last year. Sorry, I'm doing research on the
Live
phone.
research.
Over 20.
Gosh.
Mind you, it's a different stat, but the only team.
God, they were last in the country, tied with Iowa at 17 of these.
Ooh.
So what's he saying? Easily
100%.
over 22. Easily over 22. Then,
Yep.
of course, the stat that's maybe one of the more damning things is that Michigan was the only team in the country without a pass play of 40-plus yards. It includes all the academies, everything else. I'd imagine you get a few of those too.
This is Michigan, for God's sake.
100 teams had at least 6. Over 100 teams. So, yeah, you're going to get some of those. It's going to feel different. It's not going to feel as anemic, quote unquote. And, you watch these games. And I try not to watch the stats too much, throughout the game and all that. And then you look at it afterwards and it's like every game under 300 yards. Like, I feel like, they're going to find a way to boost some of these stats. That, they lose a lot. There are some question marks with the offense, but it's going to look and feel a little bit different and honestly very, very refreshing in terms of what the offense looks like. At least we hope, right? So,
yeah, creativity is the biggest thing. I think that the fact that, you couldn't even be the beneficiary of a busted coverage somewhere this year was.
Imagine that. I know you would think at some point, just by happenstance, someone would get open.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. I think we'll look back on that as it'll be truly amazing. They found a way to win 8 games, and especially the 2 biggest games on their schedule to end the year. But easily, that's an easy over for me.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to someone from the chat. Josh Jackson wants to know: does Vlad missing a multitude of partially open dunks / layups worry you?
Now, because it is what it is at this point, right? There have been games where he's made everything and he's scoring 36 points, but he's going to be good for a couple of those a game. That's just who he is, and I don't think the ceiling really relies on him making all those shots. It's going to be how they shoot from the outside. He's going to make a high number of those. So, but at this point, they haven't played through him a ton anyway. So to me, it comes down to how they shoot from the perimeter and as to whether or not how far they're going to go in the tournament and how they finish in the Big Ten.
Watch other big guys around the country. He's one of the better finishers that you see. And there's the lob the other night that didn't get finished off. And there are always some things around the rim. People had the same complaint, even though Hunter Dickinson had an incredible, field goal percentage around the rim as well. it happens when you have these big guys that are that good, and you do need to feed them the basketball. They're going to shoot around 70% if you're lucky around the rim. Vlad's a little under that, and in high 60s is very, very good. If you look at nationally, that means you're going to miss a couple every 10,
Yep.
2, 3. So that's just the way it goes. I'm not worried about it at all. He's got the way he catches passes and goes up with it and everything else is at a really high level. He was what a pickup and a fan favorite already in less than a year in this era to be able to kind of endear himself the way he has, and now he's engaged and see all that, and he's building something here in Ann Arbor is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I don't have any concerns about Flat at all. I think the concerns are the things that we talked about earlier. At this point in the year, in a lot of ways, they are what they are. So Danny Wolf is going to turn over the ball from time to time. It doesn't bother me because he does so many other things well. Vlad does so many other things well. I don't worry if he misses a bunny here and there. You're not going to shoot 100%. It just doesn't work that way. So
Breaking news.
Biff
Poggi official. Kirk Campbell to the Chargers. Two pieces of coaching news.
Interesting.
Good
Biff
for
Poggi, officially Michigan's associate head coach, which was already official like a month ago. But
Right.
Yeah,
And
that's
good
weird.
for-
That
And good for Kirk, man.
Absolutely.
He took a lot of crap here, and he was dealt kind of a bad hand. Let's be honest. And he called a lot of there were some good plays that should have worked. If we go through and talk to some of our coaches on the board that were drawn up extremely well, basic execution and those plays work. I'm not saying he did a great job. I'm just saying it's not all his fault, and I'm happy for him that he landed on his feet. And I'll say this: a lot of those guys that left here that are assistant coaches out there now are loving it, right? Not having to recruit and deal with all the crap in college football anymore. One of them got 2 weeks off. We heard 2-week vacation from everything, and he didn't know what to do with himself, and said, "Hey, I'm living the dream out here." So, good luck to Kirk, and good luck to Jim Harbaugh out there in LA.
And Harbaugh got his hip replaced, so he's
Nice.
back up and at him. Pretty good.
Nice.
it's got to kill him not being able to move around for a little bit, though.
He's probably
Already
good to
is.
go.
He's
You know,
probably out-
there are some people that get their hip or knees replaced, and they're golfing by like the next week. It's
It's
insane.
the technology's changed. My dad's had 2 from the first one to the second one. The technology changed quite a bit. You can get back out there pretty quickly.
All right, right on. We'll move to this one from the YouTube chat from Keith Rebar, who says Ronnie or Ruben for G3. Can anyone fill me in on what that is?
I have
Ronnie.
no idea.
I don't know. Ronnie Bell.
I don't
No.
know. Sorry.
You
sorry,
know how
Keith.
long I've been spending the last 15
Roddy?
minutes. Yeah, probably.
Oh, Roddy.
For G3.
Yeah. Guard 3.
Guard
maybe?
3, maybe?
Who's playing?
Oh, like who should start?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and
Sounds
Ruben's questionable tonight.
He is.
I
He's
mean,
not
I'd prefer Ruben Jones to start.
agreed. He's under the weather. So if that's the case, then Roddy Gale's going to have to step up and play better than he has, man. Holy cow. I think he's made 1 3 this year since January 1st. Is that correct? 1 out of 22.
Yes. Yeah, and it was at the 27-point loss at Purdue. It didn't even really matter.
That's
So, yes.
insane. That's
1-3
better.
against high major opponents since December 7th against Iowa.
That's absurd. So Roddy's
That's a
got to
concern.
pick it up. So I'll go with Ruben if he's healthy.
So if
Agreed.
Ruben, so it's about time. Maybe it's LJ Kaysen time again. Get a little more him out there. It's an experience. That Ohio State game was something else, but he
The
cracks me
LJ
up.
Kaysen experience. Yeah.
I love it. Lorenzo.
Yep.
Get those puppies organized.
All right, we'll take this one from the board. This is from Go Blue 428, who says safety room is stacked. He asked the question: what are the chances of us losing 1 or 2 after the spring game? Are you hearing of anyone potentially moving to corner or nickel? Well, to start with that last one, is it for sure that maybe Zeke Berry stays at corner and
Yes.
that lightens up that room a little bit? But
Yeah.
anyone could go after. DJ Waller left after the spring last year. I thought he'd start. So
Yeah.
anyone's in play now.
Yeah, speaking to people close to it, they think Zeke Berry stays at corner. They love him there. Rod Moore could play some nickel, right? When he comes back, if he's healthy. So I'm not even worried about that. It's just nice to have depth there. And guys like Brandon Hillman. It was funny talking to Quentin Johnson, and he's saying that those guys back there, the young guys, are going to be even better than the guys that they've had the last few years, which I thought was high praise. So probably a little embellishment there. But they've definitely got some talent back there. Brandon Hillman is already a fan favorite, the way he hits, the way he plays. So that room's going to be stacked.
I mean, I don't think it's embellishment to say that he could be Mason Curtis and Brandon Hillman could be better than Quentin Johnson and Makari Page.
No,
Rod Moore is kind of like a different
Right.
animal, and I wonder about if you do move him to nickel. I just like him so much at safety. It's like, are you messing with a good thing? But they do have a lot of depth there, especially bringing in T.J. Metcalf, who has experience as a starter in the SEC, had a good year last year. So they've got depth, and I think Wink is different than Mike McDonald and Jesse Minter, where he does want some of the DBs to move around a little bit more. He likes versatile safeties. He likes to blitz safeties and use them in different ways. So maybe it is, by design that they seem to have last two portal hauls and, the way they're kind of stocking that room, get a lot of them and play a lot of them.
Absolutely. Let's move to Mr. Dave, who says, would you bet $1 that Bryce Underwood starts game 5, or he meant to say game 4 against Nebraska?
$1, sure.
I'd bet you $1 that he starts the opener, honestly.
Me too.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. I'll bet the $1. I think he will. And he's going to be too, as somebody in the side, somebody in the building said, when I asked who's going to be starting this year, they said, follow the money. I mean, there's a reason that they paid this much money for this guy. They think he's the future. And I think that future starts very soon in his career.
Yeah, I think he starts game 1. I mean, so much has to happen that could change. I mean, I'm predicting that like all these things will play out throughout the offseason that will lead to that. And as we sit here on February 24th, so it's just a prediction, but I think game 1. So yeah, I'd do a Benji on game 5 for sure.
Wow.
Well, it's game 4. He did correct himself. He said game 4.
Oh, game 4?
Yeah.
Well, what is game 4?
I would bet $1 billion that
You would.
that he won't start game 5 versus Nebraska. How's that? Because it's game 4, right?
Oh,
true.
You
There you
are
go.
really confident about this Northwestern bet, and it's bled over into the rest of the show.
Well, no, they just aren't playing in game 5. That's the only reason. So, but I am confident on my Northwestern bet, and damn it, fire up Wildcats or go Cats, as Pat Fitzgerald always used to say. Is that Joe Biden?
It is.
Joe-
Nick for
Joe
$1.99.
Joe Biden with a question here for $1.99.
His name is Nick. He's sitting for $1.99. Says Bryce will start day 1. Keen ? LOL. Give me a break. I'm not going to hate on Mikey Keen there.
No.
I think it's some high end depth. I'm cool with him.
Yeah. I don't understand why you're ripping on the kid. There's a reason they brought him in. He's a winner. He's won a lot of games out there. He played well, except for the 2 bad picks against Michigan. He did some things, showed some things. He's got a lot of experience. I think he's going to be good for the room.
One of the picks was incredible by Will Johnson. And
Yeah.
same thing happened.
The
to
angriest
Miller
pick
Moss,
6
right?
of all time, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Called it.
That's right, because he had gotten beat earlier in the game, and one of them was Miller Moss did the same exact thing. So no, I mean, I think that he's a valuable guy to have in that room. But I tend to agree. Not give me a break, but I mean, line those 2 guys up next to each other. I know a lot more goes into the position. A lot of it's mental, a lot of it's processing information. But I mean, Bryce Underwood, early enrollee, he started practicing back in December before the bowl game. Like, if he can get up to speed and, at least to a certain extent, and you line those 2 guys up next to each other, one of them's more physically impressive than the other.
Yeah, I mean, the only way I don't want him starting the opener is if it's apparent that offensive line is just going to get him killed, which would be a bigger problem.
But who would it get killed? Who would be able to escape better?
Right.
Well, that's a great question that I hope we don't have to answer.
Please.
But the escapability, I mean, that's kind of what his game is, what he brings to the table. That is Bryce Underwood. So we'll see. I'm excited to see him rip it a little bit during spring ball. So April 19th, the spring game. Looking forward to that. This is from our buddy Sasquatch616 on the message board. He says, heading into the game Friday night, you mods and most of us were pretty high on Michigan's chances to at least share in the Big Ten title. Do you feel any differently after the loss to MSU, knowing that we have to go to East Lansing to play them again to close out the season?
Sure. And that's just the way it is. It's like odds continue to change, right? Michigan was the odds-on favorite to win the Big Ten before they lost to Michigan State, but upsets happen. So it's going to be tough for them at this point, right? Really depending on what happens tonight. Ask me tonight. If Michigan wins tonight, I think they have a solid shot to get a share of the Big Ten title. If they lose tonight, then it's a real uphill battle.
Yeah, I mean, the result of the game affected, like you said, the odds, the percentage chance that it happens, and in my opinion on what those chances are. So yes, it did. But at the same time, they're still right in the mix, and it's a pretty good spot to be in here.
All right, I think we'll take one more. Where did it go? This is from Blue is Gold. It says, are there any predictions regarding the 2025 football captains? I think Rod Moore is a shoe-in. Other than that,
Max Bredesen. Max Bredesen.
Ready, of course.
Yep, Max Bredesen, Rod Moore. Trying to think.
Jason Barham.
No, I don't think so. Greg.
He's my favorite player.
Greg Crippen, I don't think so, even though he's a veteran.
Did we say Derek Moore already?
Derek Moore's a possibility. Right?
Yeah, I could see that.
Rayshon Benny.
Possibly.
Ernest
Hausman. Yeah,
Ernest
Hausman would be a great one. Yeah. So, and one more on offense, guys. Let's think here for a second. Try to think. Bredesen. It's usually two on each side of the ball, right? So
Marlon Klein, dark horse. I don't know.
No, I don't think so. So
that's tough.
It is a tough one on offense. So we'll get back to you on that one next week. How's that?
There is
El Hadi.
There is one more from Mr. Dave. Is Chris going to play his grand piano at the end of the stream?
I am, but you're not going to be able to listen unless you paid the extra $5 in the super chat.
That's a beautiful. Who designed that house?
Also, there's a music rights issue around that. We can't do any live performances, or else they might demonetize us. So
I only play original content, as you guys know, when I put on my performances. So there's really no. But I do need the $5 in advance. So anybody who wants to hit super chat in $5, I'm all for it.
And you learn to play by ear, right? Is that correct?
Absolutely.
He doesn't read music.
I was actually deaf for the first 10 years of my life as well when I learned to play. So I'm just saying.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Just saying.
All right. Well, I think that's our show here. I'm ready to.
That is our show.
To finish my cold beverage here. Probably put in a food order. Thanks to Regents Field for hosting us tonight. Looking forward to we have a couple fans out there already. Looking forward to more of you showing up before tip off and or after the fact. We'll try to do this again at some point. So for Chris Ballas, for our producer Megan behind the scenes, for Clayton Safey next to me, I'm Anthony Broom. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access for $1. And we will talk to you again next time.